Daechun grinned and said that of course Hanyul was scared. The mere thought of them running into each other again in an abandoned school should have made him shiver. Hanyul started laughing and asked if he was scared and called Kang Daechun an asshole. He then jumped up to kick Daechun in the face and added that he was scared that he wouldn't get a chance to kill this guy. And Daechun flew off into a pile of school desks standing nearby. Hanyul took a run up and with shouts and wishes for Daechun to die, he jumped up to kick again. But his opponent had already managed to get up quickly, and from the side he hit Hanyul in the face with his hand that the guy started spitting blood and coughing. Daechun took him by the scruff of the neck and lifted him into the air, saying that losers like Hanyul could live, but they should obey like dogs. He then threw him to the ground and said that people like Hanul were born to be losers, and people like him, when they see weak losers who can't defend themselves, trample them underfoot. He gets in front of the camera and says that people shouldn't blame the bullies or anyone else, because they were all born pathetic themselves and it's not about the bullies. Daechun grabs a chair and throws it at the camera so that it breaks. He tells Hanul that losers like him will live as outcasts. He takes a wooden stick and tells him that if anyone is to blame, it's the ones who gave birth to them and their pathetic desires. He swung the stick at the guy sitting on the floor and told him to blame his parents. Hanul got up very quickly and punched Daechun in the face, telling him to shut up. He continued hitting him and said that people like him weren't born to be bullied. There just wasn't anyone to weed out sociopath bullies like him. The producers of the reality show were near the abandoned school where the fight was taking place. They were sitting in a special truck with their company's name on it. One of them wondered why Daechun broke the camera. After that, he asked his boss what they would do because it was the only camera in the classroom, because they thought the fight would take place in the hall. That's why they set up all the cameras there. The man with glasses yelled at him, asking him what his words meant, and told him to grab the camera and get out of the van. The man agreed without hesitation. The cameraman with headphones and camera on his shoulder ran into the school and reported to the superintendent that he was there. He opened the door to the classroom where the fight was taking place and caught the moment when Hanul was throwing a punch at Daechun. Daechun flew back, blood pouring from his nose. Hanyul called him a bastard and yelled at him to shut up. He said that people like him weren't born to be bullied. There just wasn't anyone to weed out sociopath bullies like him. Hanul throws another punch and Daechun falls to the ground. Hanul has stated that he might be the one to do it, meaning he'll weed out the bullies who will kill them all. And he wants to punch his opponent from the get-go, but falls to the ground holding his side. The cameraman is surprised but keeps filming what is happening. Hanul pulls off his jacket and sees that his white shirt is stained with blood and wonders when it happened. Next to him lay a bloody wooden stick with a few nails sticking out of it. Daechun smiled and asked Hanyul if he realized that no matter how hard losers like him tried, they were still losers, and he kicked him in the wounded side with his foot so that Hanyul flew off into the desks. He continued to stomp on him, and the cameraman, seeing this brutality, told the producer that this was not good and he would call security. The producer told him not to do that and told him to stay there, let the fight continue no matter what. The cameraman was shocked at his words and asked why. The producer remembered his dialogue with the coach and that he asked the coach why he chose to work with a dying show like this, since he already had the support of the Hun Sun group. Coach said he didn't choose him because of the show. Coach needed someone who would let the wrestling continue to the end regardless of the consequences, and for that he would need this particular producer, a father with a child who had been bullied. He told him that Hanyul could be beaten to a pulp, and even so, not to stop fighting. He asked the producer to let Hanyul fight till the very end. The producer told the cameraman that he takes all responsibility, so whatever happens, let him not stop the fight. The cameraman said that everything is fine as long as he is not seen. Hanyul, who was lying on the ground, grabbed a chair by the leg and threw it at Daechun. The latter put his hands up to defend himself. Daechun said with an evil smile that it was time for him to end this. He grabbed Hanyul by the scruff of the neck again and lifted him into the air. After that, he suggested that he show everyone what happens when fucking scum try to confront Daechun. Bright sunlight flooded the gymnasium building. The boys ran to the entrance, Haru shouting that they should find her uncle. Something must have happened to him. Taishik opened his mouth and screamed at what he saw. There was a lot of blood on the floor. He asked where it came from. Haru immediately thought of her uncle. Taishik followed the blood trail and said it led to the back of the building near the restroom. Taishik stopped around the corner. Leon was walking as fast as he could on crutches, and asked what was there and where was the teacher now. There was blood everywhere, but no one was there. Haru started crying, asking where her uncle was. Taishik noticed that someone had climbed over the wall, and there was a trail of blood. Haru ran over there, but unfortunately there was nothing but blood. They climbed over the wall. Haru fell to the ground, and looking at the blood, she added that someone had cleaned up the place and taken her uncle. They were too late. Taeshik tried to calm her down by saying that he would go and check the martial arts hall again. He ran to the window and screamed hard. Haru came to the screams. The guy fell to the ground, and covering his face with his hand, he shouted that there were a lot of bones covered in blood. Fixing his glasses, Taeshik asked if anyone knew what was going on here. Leon suddenly shouted that they were in trouble. Let them watch the broadcast and see what it looked like. Kang Dae-chun is going to kill Hanyul. The guy lifted Hanul by the scruff of the neck and said it's okay, and then he'll show what happens when the rowdies try to confront him. He punched Hanul and he flew into the wall. Then he punched him again, calling him a fucking scum. Everyone watching the broadcast was shocked at the scene. Hanul was lying there, and Kang Dae-chun was towering over him, saying that he liked the show. The door opened abruptly and there was a reporter on camera. The reporter shouted into the microphone that they should stop. Things were getting really bad. The main reporter took his head and said that they can't show the world the bully who won the fight. The reporter with the camera shouted even harder. Kang Dae-chun said that Hanyul broke his friend's leg, so he will make sure that he never uses his hand again. Now does Hanyul realize that? Dae-chun asked him. If he was born a loser, he will be pitiful no matter what he does. Smiling, he said that no matter what he does to become like him, all he has to do is apologize that he won't do it again, and they will all line up to give him a hand, even if he breaks his hand in front of the whole world. Hanyul mumbled something, but Dae-chun didn't understand. The guy repeated again that one hand was enough. Then he shouted again, addressing Dae-chun as a strange freak. The man with glasses cried. He told the chief reporter that the fight was over. He understood him and ordered the two men behind him to stop the fight while he continued filming, saying that now the last words would be said. But suddenly, Hanul hit Da-cheng sharply. He flew away in surprise. An shouted that he knew it was the bones in the gym. Taeshik didn't understand what was going on. Leon said that like himself, Hanul had learned it from their master. Then he thought that the technique to break the weak bones of the human body, in particular, the weakest bone is the clavicle. Hanul shouted and sharply hit Da-chun. Breaking his bone, blood spurted upwards. Hanyul stood over Kang Dae-chun and asked him if he wanted to leave him with someone permanent. Now this is not something only he can do. And Hanyul stepped hard on his foot. He screamed a lot, but Hanul said he wasn't even close to finishing. Kang Dae-chun, who was exhausted, started begging him to stop. Hanul stopped and thought for a second that the bastard should beg all the people he was bullying and making miserable and apologize to his friends. Lying on the ground, Dae-chun shouted, "What are these assholes doing? Who are filming all this? Why don't they stop Hanul?" But no one reacted to his words. Then Hanul shouted that he would die and was ready to hit him, but Dae-chun got scared and shouted that he should forgive him. A couple of drops of blood splashed from Dae-chun's mouth, and all the spectators were shocked at what was happening. Hanyul kicked Kang Dae-chun. Then he stopped, and said the point was that it was too late while he begged him to stop. All the shit he'd done could be sold with a simple apology. He swung again, but Dae-chun shouted that he was trash, that Hanyul should know how it felt. The only way to get rid of that feeling was to take away those who were worse than him. Hanul raised his hand and calmly told him that he was wrong. Shouting and aiming at Dae-chun at the same time, he said that who gave people like him the right to choose who they can choose. There was another heavy bang, followed by the siren of an ambulance. The ambulance was outside the hospital. Hanyul had a bandaged arm. He sighed. Someone ran up to him and hugged him very tightly. It was Haru. He asked her what was wrong, and she immediately said that her uncle had disappeared. Taeshik shouted loudly that the master was in the hospital, and the guys were surprised. They ran down the corridor, and Taeshik pointed to where the master was lying. The master was completely covered with a blanket. Haru screamed and fell down, but Haru suddenly said he was doing it again. The nurse told the patient that she had told him many times not to do it. The master took off the sheet and said it was very bright, so he covered his head completely. Haru threw herself on her uncle and hugged him. The guys shouted what happened. The whole gym was covered in blood. He replied that he would be fine if Haru stopped squeezing him. She repeated the guy's question. Uncle answered that he would have died if their friends hadn't found him before those gangsters. Then he said that right now they must be on the roof, and he asked Hanul if he wanted to say hello to them. Hanul averted his eyes and opened his mouth in surprise. Hanyul walked up the stairs, he thought. How should he apologize to her now? Se-young-ha had only come out of hiding because she trusted him, but she was hurt again because of him. He thought, what could he do to make it up to her? He had to do something, anything. He was the only one she had left. He opened the door to the roof and was surprised, telling himself that how could he not know that he wasn't the only one. On the roof were Seong-ha and Lee-on, the guy fixing the girl's hair nicely. Han-yol called himself an idiot and decided to leave, but someone called out to him. The girl said that she heard the apology. She thanked Han-yol that Daechun had apologized. Now Han-yol didn't have to worry about her anymore. For one thing, he didn't have to apologize to her. Seong-ha cried and added that she is alive because he saved her from suicide. She thanked Hanul for being such a sincere friend. Thank you for making her want to live again. Hanul cried and thanked her for accepting his apology. At the gym, someone asked why Hanul said he would leave again. Taeshik shouted that everything was back to normal. The master even made the Kang-han clan cancel their agreement with Hanyuli for winning the match against the Hua Ryong clan. Haru replied that it was probably because of his mother, since Han-yol had always believed that he was responsible for his mother's death. Takshik remembered hearing the same thing from Seong-ha. Haru said that after the incident he came to the conclusion that he had caused unhappiness to everyone around him, so he probably blames himself for what happened to Seong-ha and his uncle. He's leaving now that everything is back to normal so that none of his friends will be hurt again. Taeshik asked what happened to his mother. Haru started the story that Seong-ha told her, that the day his mother left because she lost custody of him. Han-yul begged his mother to take him to the amusement park one last time. On the way to the park, his mother was crying so hard she couldn't see properly. That's when the accident happened. They were hit by a truck. Hanul only survived because his mother covered him with her body. Hanil interrupted Haru's story by saying that he wanted to say goodbye for real. Haru asked him if he really wanted to leave. Hanul was silent and Haru said that no one was unhappy because of him. On the contrary, because of him, Uncle and Seong-ha are fine again, turned their smiles back to them. He said he finally found the courage to go to his mom. He never visited her because he was too busy torturing himself. The guilt was so strong, so painful. But he thinks it was the easy way out for him. He didn't care how others felt. He just thought that living a shitty life would make up for what happened to his mom. He looked down guiltily and added that he shouldn't have run away like that. As much as he wanted to die, he didn't see the pain he had caused the people who cared about him. So now he will live his life taking care of the people he loves. First, he will go back to the house he and his mom lived in and take care of the grave. He needs to catch up on his work. Haru asked him right away that he wasn't leaving for good. Hanul put something in her hand. It was the address where his mom lived. Then he asked her if she wanted to say hello to her sometime. She smiled sweetly and said of course she would. Taeshik was so surprised that Haru wanted to visit his mom that he asked her what was going on between them. All the guys laughed. The master stood in his wheelchair and asked Hanul who told him he could leave. Had he forgotten that he had signed a contract for slave labor? He should at least teach all the children he brought here. Hanul didn't expect such an answer from the master. They looked at the street and the master said that outcasts from all over the country had gathered here because of him. They wanted him to teach them. There were many boys in the street who shouted for the master to spare them. The master told Hanul that the contract said he would get 80% of his earnings, so the sheik said he never ceased to amaze him. The end.